Have you ever watched a child learn something new and just felt amazed? The way they absorbed everything so quickly, a new word, a new idea, a new skill, as if it simply enters them effortlessly. And then I sometimes find myself wondering, when did that become harder for us? Because as adults, we read books, we listen to podcasts, we attend workshops, we take notes, we genuinely want to learn. And yet sometimes it feels like very little truly stays with us. We hear something valuable, we nod, we understand it in that moment, and then somehow it slips away. Why does that happen? Why does learning feel so natural for children and sometimes feel so difficult for adults? And more importantly, can we get that ability back? That's what I'd love to explore with you today. Hello, dear friends, and welcome. I'm Nasreen, and I'm so happy you are here with me today. Welcome to the Japan Reiki Association channel, a space where we explore mindfulness, personal growth, self-awareness, and simple ways to bring more peace, clarity, and joy into everyday life. I truly believe that even the smallest shift in awareness can create a beautiful change in how we feel within ourselves and how we move through the world around us. And today, I want to talk about something that feels both simple and surprisingly powerful. Something I've been reflecting on deeply lately. How children learn so naturally. And what they might still be able to teach us about how we learn, how we listen, and how we stay open as adults. Because perhaps learning isn't only about gaining more information. Perhaps sometimes it's about remembering how to receive. I've been noticing this a lot lately, just by watching my children. Sometimes they learn something new so quickly, it honestly amazes me. A new word, a new phrase, a new way of doing something. And suddenly, it's theirs. And sometimes, not just the things we want them to learn, but especially the things we wish they hadn't picked up so quickly. You know what I mean? One random word slips out in conversation, and somehow that becomes the word they repeat all day long. And I find myself thinking, of all the things I've been trying to teach you, that's the one you remembered. And it makes me smile. But it also makes me pause. Because when you really watch children, they receive everything with such openness. They're curious, they're present, they're not trying so hard. They're not sitting there wondering, do I already know this? Do I agree with this? Is this useful? They're simply absorbing, naturally, fully. And watching that made me ask myself, what changes as we grow older? Why does learning feel so effortless in childhood and sometimes feels so much harder in adulthood? Recently, I was reading a blog by Yoko Tsuji from Japan, and something she shared really caught my eye. Her insight was simple but incredibly powerful. She said that as adults, when we are learning something new, our minds often do something automatically without us even realizing it. Instead of simply listening, we begin checking. We ask ourselves, do I already know this? Have I heard this before? Do I agree with this? Is this something I believe? And it happens so quickly, we may not even notice we're doing it. But the moment that checking begins, something shifts. We are no longer fully receiving what's being offered. We are comparing it to what we already know, measuring it, judging it, sorting it. and sometimes even deciding whether to accept it before we've truly heard it. When I read that, I paused because it felt so true. And once I noticed it, I began seeing it in myself too. How often do we listen, not to discover something new, but simply to confirm what we already know? And maybe that's where the real shift begins. Not in learning more, but in noticing how we are listening while we learn. And the more I reflected on it, the more I realized children and adults don't just learn differently, they listen differently. A child listens with openness, with curiosity, with wonder, without needing to decide right away what something means, without rushing to label it as right or wrong, useful or not useful, true or not true. They simply stay with it. They let it come in. But as adults, our minds are busy, very busy. Even while listening, we compare, we analyze, we judge, we filter everything through our past experiences, our beliefs, what we've already learned, and what we think we already know. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's natural, it's part of being human. But sometimes that mental noise becomes so loud that it leaves very little space for something new to enter. Sometimes we are not truly listening to learn. We are listening to confirm, to agree, to disagree, to recognize, to protect what we already know. And perhaps that is why something can sound familiar and still not fully land. Which is why this idea touched me so deeply. What if learning isn't always about adding more? What if sometimes it's about creating space? Space to listen, space to be curious, space to hear something as if for the very first time, like a child would. And this doesn't only apply when we are reading a book or taking a class or learning something new. I think it shows up in everyday life more often than we realize. In conversations with the people we love, in moments when someone is trying to share something with us, in feedback, in disagreements, even in the quiet moments we have with ourselves. How often do we begin forming a response before the other person has even finished speaking? How often do we think, I know where this is going, or I've heard this before? And maybe we stop listening just a little too soon. But what if we didn't? What if, just for a moment, we chose to stay open a little longer? To listen with curiosity instead of conclusion, to hear with presence instead of judgment, to allow space before deciding what something means. What might we hear differently? What might we understand more deeply? And what might we finally receive that we may have missed before? Sometimes the wisdom isn't hidden. Sometimes it's already right in front of us. We just need a quieter mind to notice it. So, I'd love to offer you a small invitation today, a simple practice, and you can try it anytime, maybe later today, maybe tomorrow. The next time someone is speaking to you, the next time you open a book, listen to a podcast, join a class, or even sit quietly with your own thoughts, pause for just a moment and gently ask yourself, Can I listen to this as if I'm hearing it for the first time? Even if it feels familiar, even if you've heard it before, even if part of you wants to say, yes, yes, I already know this. Just notice that voice and let it soften. Then come back to listening. Come back to curiosity. Come back to presence. You don't need to force anything. You don't need to understand everything immediately. Just create a little space, a little openness, a little willingness to receive. And perhaps in that space, something new enters. Maybe not because the words are new, but because you are meeting them differently. With fresh ears, with a softer mind, with an open heart. And perhaps that is the beautiful reminder children offer us. Not just how to learn faster, but how to stay open, how to stay curious, how to receive life as it comes. And maybe we don't need to become children again, but perhaps we can reconnect with that childlike openness that still lives within us. That quiet willingness to listen, to notice, to receive. At the Japan Reiki Association, this is very close to what we continue to explore through our teachings and practice. Energy is everywhere, around us, within us. And when we learn to become more aware of that energy within our body, within our thoughts, and within our daily lives, we begin to feel more connected to ourselves, more grounded, more peaceful, and often more joyful. When your energy cup feels full, when it feels nourished and overflowing, it becomes much easier to smile, to feel lighter, and to move through life with greater ease. And that awareness begins with presence, with listening, with creating space within ourselves to receive. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. And if this message resonated with you, I invite you to explore more through the Japan Reiki Association. We offer teachings and learning opportunities in different parts of the world, and we would be so happy to welcome you. Please feel free to visit our website to learn more. And until next time, take gentle care of yourself. Keep your heart open and keep smiling. ありがとうございます。